Listen.
Welcome to the Dotcast from 9dots. 9dots is the online learning community for wedding photographers, and if you want to know more, head over to 9-dots.co. Hello friends, my name is Adam Johnson and I am one of the co-founders of 9dots, along with the legends that are Andy Gaines and Rahul Kona. This is the second series of Dotcast episodes. I've been chatting to photographers from the 9dots community about business, art and life. Today's chat is with Manchester-based Neil Redfern. I've been friends with Neil since I started as a wedding photographer back in 2010, and we reminisced during the episode about how important it was that we found a really friendly community of local wedding photographers in those early days, partly thanks to Twitter. I'll chat to Neil about his evolution into an off-camera flash master with his own unique style, and he has some interesting insights into what sort of images he puts out on his social media, especially since trading became a big part of his business. We'll also talk about his successful YouTube channel where he's already built a following of over 25,000 subscribers and how he got started there. What I love the most about this episode is how Neil finishes by talking about his love for the creative process, rather than any recognition, likes, followers or subscribers, and how he's driven by an innate need to capture things to look back on in the future. It's a really interesting and very inspiring viewpoint, and something we could all learn from. Neil was also due to be presenting at the 2020 9dots gathering, which has been postponed to November 2021, and I'm glad to say that Neil will still be there with us. Check out more about the 9dots gathering at 9-dots.co/gathering. Any comments or suggestions for the Dotcast, or if you want to ask a question to be answered on a future episode by me or one of our guests, drop us a message on Instagram or Facebook, or send a good old-fashioned email to hello@9-dots.co. Anyway, on with the episode.
Knowing me, Adam Johnson, knowing you, Neil Redfern, aha!
Aha! That is a lifelong dream achieved right there.
For both of us.
Yeah.
For both of us. I mean, I even mentioned to you that I was gonna use that as my intro to these podcasts, and I told you, like, I'm expecting 9 out of 10 people to reply with silence.
Oh, I don't know if that would be a good or a bad thing though, because I quite like the fact that it might be now a bit of an underground secret club. Because back in the day, like, everyone would have realised what that meant.
It's true, but the trouble was, the first one I recorded was, I don't know if you listened to it, it's Heather Jowett.
I did. I listened to it last night, yeah. Which, to be fair, like, being American, a bit of a disadvantage.
A little bit, but I thought she'd be more into British comedy than she was. But then I hit the massive roadblock of how do you explain Alan Partridge in words to somebody it's almost like trying to explain a colour to a blind person.
It is, and the ironic thing is as well, I was thinking, after I heard that, if I was to sit down and explain Alan Partridge to somebody who'd never seen him, I don't think I could make him sound very funny. I don't know what it is that makes him funny. Like, and that's the genius of it. But yeah, he was a big part. I'm really fanboy now. He wasn't a big part of my childhood, but yeah, he honestly, like, I think it's one of the one comedies that I would never get bored of.
But anyway, this is not an Alan Partridge appreciation podcast.
Shame.
I know, yeah. Well, it is now. But no, it's great to have you on. Thanks for being on the Dotcast. Obviously, you and me, we've got a lot in common in our kind of wedding photography life, especially, but also in life in general. Both from Manchester. Yeah. Both support the correct football team.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's Manchester United for anybody listening who doesn't know.
Indeed.
Both massive fans of the city of Manchester and being from Manchester.
Yeah, why not?
Both became wedding photographers pretty much at exactly the same time.
Correct, yeah.
I think you were just before me, so I think you started in 2008, 2009 time.
The first wedding was 2006, although I don't know if I could really even count that, because that was like 1 or 2 weddings that year for friends, and then started sort of actually shooting for people who I didn't know about 2007, 2008, yeah.
Yeah, and then I started 2009ish, but I remember, I don't know, I think it was the heyday of Twitter, wasn't it, back then? And I think
yes, yeah. And the funny thing is, like, I've not used Twitter for years now, but if I look at my Twitter account, I've actually tweeted loads, and I was like, when's all this happened? And back in the day, I forget this, but maybe you're the same. I must have been tweeting like a lot, and I have no real memory of it.
Yeah. Well, back then, Facebook wasn't particularly conversational. There was no Facebook Messenger, obviously. I don't think WhatsApp existed. So I think if you wanted to actually chat to people Twitter was the only real way to do that in the industry, in like to get mates in the industry or whatever. That was the only real way to do it. And I remember meeting loads of people like, back then. And I think that's how, because we had a really good community in the Northwest, definitely back then, especially. And I think that's pretty much how we all first connected was Twitter.
It must have been. It must have been. I mean, I can remember when I first went full time, and I used to have a proper job, like you, same as you, working in an office. And then when I went full time, I remember thinking, I don't know anyone, so I need to start like getting in contact with people who I know, like I look up to and things like that, and try and sort of get a little community around me, because otherwise I'd be completely isolated. And I was using email then just to contact people like, oh, hi, I love your work. Will you come and meet me for lunch? And that was it. As far as that was the very first way that I could get in contact with people. I don't think it was other ways. Like you say, after that, it would have been Twitter. And I remember I did send this. I could probably get arrested for this now. I was sending DMs to people, to a florist friend of mine, saying, "Do you fancy meeting up for lunch?" And like just over Twitter, like just a random guy saying, "Hiya, I work in weddings. Do you want to meet up for lunch or something?" And it's weird now.
I don't think you're going to get arrested for DMing a florist on Twitter, mate. So you can probably calm down.
True. But it's something I just wouldn't. I don't think I'd do that now. Like just literally out the blue, saying like, "Hiya, do you want to meet up?"
Yeah, it's totally different though. I just think it's totally different now. But just on that, like we ended up because of that. Really, I don't know if it was a fluke or whether people were lucky in other like regions of the country or beyond. But we ended up with a really tight knit group of about 20 of us, didn't we, back then?
It was really nice, and I don't know if we were lucky or it was just a different time. I don't know, because back then again, like it wasn't as easy to be social online, was it? And I think that was probably the key thing. So yeah, it was really good, and we'd obviously, like you say, we'd meet up every month, quite messy drinking nights and everything, but that was good. And like I still, that's how obviously me and you got first like became friends and stuff, and I still like remember that time like fondly, and I'm really pleased it happened, because the friendships made then still hold true now, and
they do,
and it's all come down to meeting people in person. I think that's the thing that is different now. It's not really, I don't think it really counts for the friendship unless you know somebody in person.
No, I mean, you're making us both sound like quite social beings here, but
oh god,
one of my favourite is that we met up at some kind of champagne bar in Manchester one time, and neither you or me wanted to really be that social, and ended up just sat together in the corner for the night, just having a chat, and hoping people came to talk to us, which nobody did.
And the thing is that this is what one of the weird ironies, I do think we're very, very similar, but I don't think you'd realise it first off, because obviously, you've got 9 dots now, and you have the gathering where you've got like, I don't know, 100, 150 people come in, and you're one of the people who everyone wants to speak to, and you're there and being social and everything. But I've always thought that I don't think that's really you, but you can sort of turn it on for a time, and then afterwards you'll probably be really tired. And I've like doing the bits and bobs on YouTube, but I'm a massive introvert, so it almost doesn't make any sense, does it? And like you say, my absolute nightmare scenario is going to, I'm going to have to use the word networking thing, and walking into a room not knowing anyone. That fills me with anxiety. I hate that. If I know one person, I'll gravitate to them and stick to them like a leech, because I don't feel comfortable just walking up to people saying, "Hi, I'm Neil." Yeah. It's turned into a therapy session now. Why do
you think this is though? Because we're not actually that unusual. You speak to a lot of wedding photographers, especially, and you find out that a lot of people are introverted or a bit socially awkward. I wonder why that's a thing amongst. I bet it's not just wedding photographers. I bet it's photographers in general.
I would, without a doubt. And like you say, from my experience as well, most people definitely are sort of more on the introvert scale. I don't know why that is. I think it's because to do this job, although we're talking about like the more social aspects, a lot of it is very isolated. So if you were someone who needed that interaction with people every single day, being a wedding photographer isn't probably the best job for you, because you're getting that interaction like 1 out of 6 or 7 days or something. But I don't know, because the actual job of being a wedding photographer, in many ways, you do need to come out of your shell a little bit. And I just think we can probably all do that for a very small amount of time, but then default back to normal. I have done a personality test online once, and it was freakishly accurate, where it says things like that you can become a different person for a certain amount of time. The example it gave me was being on the stage. And I remember I did a workshop a few years ago now. In fact, I think you may have been there. one that I did for charity, just a mess about one. It wasn't a serious thing. And I had like about 50 people turn up, which was amazing. And I remember first arriving, it's in the city centre in Manchester, arriving at the venue, sort of setting up the laptop and the projector and everything. And I'm fine doing that because I've got a little job. So there's a lot of people sort of stood around mingling and chatting away and everything. And then I think, right, I'm set up now, but it doesn't start for the half an hour. What do I do now? And I left. I just left and went to a little Tesco and bought some food and then walked around the city centre whilst my workshop was going on. Yeah. And then arrived like 5 minutes before and then just started. And as soon as I started, hi, I'm Neil, blah, 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 I was fine. And then it's lunchtime and then it's like, oh God. And it's weird. It's such a weird thing. It's like the on and the off.
Yeah.
And I still struggle now, but I just come to terms that's who I am.
Yeah, I mean, I always think weddings, especially. I think I have like a character that I get into.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Like the wedding photographer character, and that's what I think. I'm able to be really extroverted and social at weddings a lot of the time, especially if I get off on the right foot in the morning. Usually, sometimes I find if I don't get off on the right foot with the girls in the morning or whatever, I find it much harder throughout the rest of the day. But if
100%,
the banter is good in like bridal prep, I'm on top of the world then, and I can be funny the rest of the day and like get people bantering and all sorts. But yeah, it's funny that, isn't it, the whole character thing? But I think being on the stage is a good example for it. But I think we're very, very similar characters on that side of things. But you mentioned, I mean, let's talk first. I mean, one thing that became massive in your work quite early on, I think, is Flash.
Yes.
I think you were doing like Flash before it was cool to do Flash. That's what I'm going to go there. And was that a conscious decision stylistically, or just because I think you're quite into the technical side of photography as well, like me? And was it like the attraction to like being a bit more technical with your work that started you off in Flash, or what? I've loaded that question with so many options, but yeah, you can answer however you like.
Yeah, you have, and I'll take one. Yeah, I think it was more. I just found it fascinating how you could make a photograph look very different to what your eyes see, and I always felt as though that would help me stand out a little bit more. And it's still the case now, because I always say this, like when I'm talking to people about Flash, like Flash now is not my favorite part of photography whatsoever. Not it's moments, like it's documentary, 100%. But the Flash has always paid the bills. So I'm always very conscious of that. So it's always been the fascination with trying to create something that is different, that sets you apart. And part of that is because I like those photographs, I'm not going to lie, but part of it as well is because it does help me, I think, set me apart a little bit and give me a bit of a USP. And that's why I sort of go down that road a little bit more. But yeah, I've always liked the fact that it's like, oh, I took this picture, the bride and groom won't know. A bit different now, because obviously it's such a sort of common sort of thing that people do. But like going back 7-8 years, yeah, you could take a photograph and think, the bride and groom won't know what this looked like. And I found that quite fascinating. Plus, especially because, again, like, especially a few years ago, it really was a differentiator. That was why I definitely enjoyed using it.
Yeah, but I mean, I know that when you talk about Flash now, you're really talking about your portraiture, aren't you? But I remember you were doing like multiple off-camera flashes for speeches and things before anybody else really was. Because I remember speaking to you. I remember, like, I used to love you looking at your speech pictures and thinking, how does Neil? Yeah, I hate him now. Yeah. I remember thinking, going back a few years, I remember thinking, how does Neil always get perfect light in all his venues, every speeches?
Oh, you're very kind, mate. 5's in the post. Yeah, this sounds really awful. It sounds like a Get Out answer. I don't really remember how stuff like that would have started.
Yeah.
I've been using Flash for like you say, for speeches now for so long that I don't remember a first point like, oh, I'm going to do this. It's probably more out of pure necessity. That's how things tend to happen for me. I tend to figure out things that work quite well because I don't know if we can swear on here. Basically, I'm in the shit because I started shooting. Again, this is awful to admit. I started shooting manual during a wedding ceremony, literally. That I was shooting a ceremony, the Bella Vista in Rochdale, shout out, and shooting into bright windows and thinking, why is my camera, which would have been probably in P at the time, I'm sure, showing me a silhouette of the bride and groom, and literally panicking, thinking, I need to sort this out right now. And that's when I put the camera onto manual. Literally that time. It's crazy to look back on. And with the flashes, with the speeches, I dare say my guess would be I was shooting speeches and thinking, why is it all so dark? I'm struggling. Let's put a flash on. It probably was that. I say I don't really go into it, maybe a bit different now, but back then I wouldn't have thought ahead. It would have been like, this isn't going right. I need to sort this out. And it would have been through pure panic, basically.
I mean, I think that's how a lot of people initially get into Flash, isn't it? Just as like an experimentation phase.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the most common thing that people say in my workshops is like, oh, I do use off-camera Flash, but it's like a lot of it is look, which, you know, is probably the same for all of us still, that every now and again you'll get a good shot, and that good shot sees you through to try it again and try it again. But yeah, a lot of it is like people feel it's a bit more hit and miss.
Yeah, but I think a lot of it, especially from my perspective now, I reckon you'll agree, is once you kind of find your recipe, you're not really experimenting all that much. You kind of know it's almost like taking a normal picture. Once you're really comfortable with it, and not as, because the reason a lot of people are a bit afraid of Flash, I think, is just a bit because they've not tried it enough to know that it's quite predictable. Once you have certain ways of doing it, it can be as predictable as working with natural light.
That's so true. That's so true. Yeah, and I have go-to setups which I just use wherever. You could say now, right? Oh, you're going to shoot speeches, stay over there. All I'd need to know is, can I bounce off the ceiling? And that will just then dictate the one decision I have to make in regards to the setup. Once I know that, I know what the setup will be now. So, like you say, it's extremely predictable. And that is what makes it so good, because then you don't really have to think anymore. It's just like, you don't have to worry about what the light's doing. It's going to be the same all the time. So you can just concentrate on shooting. It's a really good point.
Yeah. But do you think it's tricky now? Because obviously, I would say you show a lot of, and you talked about it before, because it is kind of your unique selling point in a way. But you show a lot in your portfolio, social media, all the rest of it. Like, you show a lot of what you'd call like a Neil Redfern Flash portrait. But like you're saying, it's still only going to be a minor element of the day. But, and this is a bigger debate really, but like, I think in a lot of ways, like these artier pictures that maybe arguably wouldn't stand the test of time, like the moments will from that wedding.
Oh, they don't. 100% they don't.
They're the images and it's those stuff that gets you the bookings, and in a way gives you the unique selling point that means you can have a slightly higher price tag. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword in a way, because you have to take them, and that means people expect them. But realistically, what they want out the other end of the wedding is probably, you know, that picture's going to impress them to start with. But like, I guess my question is, do you find people just expect those pictures now, and you kind of have to conjure them up, or do you still enjoy conjuring them up, or sometimes does it feel a bit like a ball and chain?
But a bit of both, really. But I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head when you said that. But yeah, I have to take them because I feel the need. And often it's not that, I don't think it's the bride and groom on the day that are putting the pressure on me to take them. I think it's in my own head. I can't leave a wedding without thinking, right, what's my finale shot? Now that's not because often the bride and groom are dancing it; they don't really care. But I've got this thing in me which is like, I have to take something, because if I don't, I've let them down, and I've let me down, if you like. And then I've also I also need content to show the next couple as well. But what you said, which I think is so true, is that those photographs are for now. They have a shelf life, I believe, of maybe 6 months to a year. In terms, from the bride and groom point of view, they're probably like, they want to look at those first, maybe put them on Facebook because they are a little bit different, and they are something that's going to get attention, basically.
Yeah.
But I don't have any illusions whatsoever. There is no sort of couple who are going to sit back when they're 80 on a park bench looking back at the photographs and think, oh, look at that photograph that Neil did with the fractal filter. That is never going to happen. But what hopefully will happen is, you know, it's very cheesy and cliche, but it's so true that it'll be the moments, the real moments where we've had no say in that moment whatsoever, which stand the test of time. But I always think what you can't, or maybe you can, I try to insinuate this in, say, inquiry meetings. So I always think that like the flash photographs are a bait, if you like, to get couples interested. And often that's when couples do inquire, they'll say, oh, we really like the pictures that we've seen on Instagram. And Instagram, like 4 out of 5 pictures is a portrait, that sort of thing. And then I spend my inquiry meetings talking to them about the importance of moment. But I think couples sometimes almost like need educating as to why the moments are so important. Because what you can't basically say is, look, you're going to want that photograph of you with your dad. because, in 30 years' time, he might not be here. And you can't really say, let's contract on the moments because everyone's going to die. It's a little bit negative, but I think I try and insinuate the importance of moments more in inquiry meetings. So it's very much two sides. The portraits are the bait, and then I spend talk about the portraits. But for me, I always have the fear that if I show the 4 out of 5 shots are documentary images, one, I think everyone shoots documentary these days. Documentary used to be the niche, but now it's not. Now everyone's shooting documentary. So portraits are more the niche now. And I think that sort of helps me because even though people might want documentary, I'm still, if people want portraits, I'm probably standing out a little bit more to those people because I'm in a smaller pool now. But I still feel as though like, if I was just to shoot all portraits and nail the portraits and have no moments, I've massively failed at that wedding.
Yeah.
To me, I'm very aware that the portraits are superficial. The real substance will always be the moments. But as I say, I don't think bride and grooms realise that at the time that they're getting married. It's life that tells you that.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. That's what I was getting at, really. I mean, I love the fact that your inquiry meetings start off by going, "Hi, I'm Neil Redfern. Just to let you know, everybody at your wedding is going to die."
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and then get him off on the right foot. Yeah, it's brilliant.
And then after they start crying, I have tissues ready, and it's truth hurts. Now let's get on with it.
Tough love. Tough love.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, but I agree with you. It's so funny that you say that. I've never really thought of it in that sense that documentary was once the niche, and I definitely remember those days. Like I definitely started.
Oh yeah, I can know everybody's website was portraits.
Yeah.
All the time, and then documentary became a bit more of a thing. I mean, it was always there, obviously, but I think people saw it as being the filler.
Yeah.
To the portrait, whereas I say now it's almost not cool to take portraits. And I'm still, as I said before, I'm still massive. Will always be of the belief now, like through Tyler, mainly through the first gathering, when listening to Tyler's words of wisdom. I've always said to people, I've been Tylered, so like. Documentary is the be all and end all when it comes to photography, really, especially to wedding photography. But yeah, it is something that everybody does. So if you look at this purely from a marketing point of view and a business point of view, do you want to be in a pool with like where 90% of the people are, or do you want to be in a pool where 10% of the people are in terms of your competition? And if you can excel within the 10, where you've only got 10% of the competition, then that's where you can stand out a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I've always kind of had a focus in my work on documentary, even though I kind of started off like focusing mainly on the portraits. Quite quickly realised my passion was in the documentary.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember working with a videographer who you and me know really well, and I remember vividly like shooting a wedding with him, and it got to portrait time, and he said something like, "Okay, now this is where you earn your money," and I thought, "What do you think I've been doing for the last like?" 5 hours, and what do you think I'm going to do for the next 5 after this half hour? Like it really brought home to me that that's how a lot of people see wedding photographers. Is like we just turn up for the day, we do our very best to like snap away, and then we get a bit of time to do actual photography, and then we do our best to snap away again for the rest of the day. And that's definitely changed.
Oh, it has, yeah. And I think this is one of the problems that bride and grooms maybe have when they're looking at photographers, that they don't realise the skill that is required to take good documentary. Because there is then, if you've got an off-camera flash photograph with prisms and crystals and all that going on, I don't think a couple will look at that picture and think, my uncle could take that.
Yeah.
But if you have a photograph of someone crying, you're in the right place, you're in the right, everything's right, and you basically, that photograph includes 10 years experience, which you can't really tell on the face of it. There is this sort of, it's easy to look at that and think, anyone could take that because it's just a inverted commas snap because it's all natural light and everything like that. And that's one of the difficulties I think that we as people who like taking documentary photographs have, which is how do you sort of try and get across to couples that it takes a lot of skill to do that well, because like you said in that example, it's easy to think that you are just sort of, I hate the word snap, but like snapping away.
Yeah.
Because you've not got you've not got lights set up, you've not got umbrellas and soft boxes and everything. So you're just taking pictures, basically spraying and praying. Where you're not, you're composing, you're looking for the light, but it's not. It doesn't seem immediately obvious that you're doing that. So it is harder, I think, for couples to differentiate.
Yeah, and before we move on as well, it's harder as well to stand out, like you say, but not just stand out in like a like high level marketing sense, but also with the way that probably most of our customers consume wedding photography for the first time on things like Instagram.
So true.
If you're just showing like, you know, confetti, first dance, bride's dad having emotional reactions, that's probably like 80% of everything they're seeing, like getting hit in the face with on Instagram. So if you've got pictures, and it doesn't have to be portraits, but if you've got pictures, like if you're just doing documentary, you can still stand out. You can still find your, you know, like uniqueness, I guess. But standing out is so important. But still like staying on the same vein of like the flash portraits, the standout stuff. Obviously, a few years ago now, and you'll tell me how long, but you started teaching. So teaching became a big part of your kind of world in photography. But like now, most of your workshops are flash based.
Yes.
And I think having that element of like unique selling point, again, that kind of to your work, is what's helped you probably get into the teaching side of it as well.
Yeah, it has, and that also feeds into why a lot of what I show is the portrait stuff, because I'm sort of at this like constant battle in my head that when I show pictures publicly, especially on Instagram, who am I showing them to? And I've almost made the decision that my Instagram is 70-30 sort of pointed towards photographers who potentially may come on workshops, follow me on YouTube and what have you, and things like that. And that's another reason why a lot of what I show is the portrait side, because I don't feel as though the majority of people who look at my work on Instagram are couples. Obviously, couples feed into that, which is really nice, and I hope, you know, I'd like to have more. But it's certainly that all the comments I ever receive are certainly from photographers. So that sort of feeds into that. And again, it's one of those self-fulfilling prophecies that if you know that what's getting you attention and is doing well, again, for your business is a particular style of photograph, that's what I sort of feed that more. And then before you know it, that's become what you do. So again, it's not ever really been a hugely conscious decision, but it's become very obvious that if I were to stop showing those images and start going down another road, then it would impact a part of my business, which I love doing now, and is a big, big part of the business. So it all sort of feeds in, but it's a constant struggle between who am I trying to show these images to, because I have two very, very different markets. You know, one is like say photographers, and the other is obviously couples who sort of are my bread and butter. So
yeah, but I mean, you say it's a split audience, but at the same time, going back to what you said earlier, it probably isn't that split. You know, what you've done is you're showing those like unique selling point images, so the couples who see it are still going to pick up on it and see something different, and then buy into that side of your work, and then, you know, see that that's the difference between you and the other 30 photographers that they've just Googled or found on Instagram that might then push them to book with you and spend a little bit more maybe as well. So maybe it is a split audience, but maybe it isn't. But I think you're dead right.
Yeah.
Like the advice you're giving, which is to kind of know your audience and go for that audience. And you decided that mainly that's photographers.
Yeah. Oh yeah, without a doubt. And I say I've almost sort of made that decision maybe a year or two ago when it comes to Instagram. My website and blog, when I actually update it, is different. That's when I will show a lot more photographs in a blog post. But my Instagram, I'm very, very selective about. And I only post maybe like once every 2 or 3 days, because I don't have enough content of the quality and the style and the originality that I would like to post more than that. And part of that is because I made the decision that what I show on Instagram has to stand out. And I'll be honest, I'm going for the attention. And it's funny because if I look at my Instagram, I would say 4 out of 5 shots that I show on Instagram are off-camera flash portraits or off-camera flash photographs in some sense. They will do what I would say they do okay. If I show a moment, I'm literally lucky if I get a quarter of the likes.
Yeah.
There is a huge disparity in that, and it's not just a one-off. It is a very I can tell. I've sort of developed a bit of a knack of knowing what will work and what won't. But every now and again, because I feel like I don't want it to be purely portraits, I'll throw in a documentary shot. But I do that knowing it won't do as well. And I don't like this about social media, because that means that social media is dictating what I'm not always posting what I love. I'm posting what I think will do well for my business, and that doesn't sit well with me. but it's something that I do, and I need to sort of get better at trying to sort of become a bit more selfish, I suppose, and posting what I feel I prefer the most rather than what the algorithm will like.
I think it's the best, and it's the most intelligent way to use it as well, I think, because in your media, like, you've got to understand Instagram is mostly looked at as tiny little pictures on a tiny little screen.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
like moments are never get, especially moments with any subtlety, which is to me is that they're
100%.
the like moments that have like some intelligence and some subtlety and all that kind of stuff into them just blend in on Instagram, because people aren't spending the time, they're just scrolling through really fast.
Yeah,
For anyone,
and I think that's really sad.
This is a podcast, and I'm making a hand signal of a thumb on the screen, and nobody can see that.
I thought you were calling me something else then.
I like this because it's almost like a trip of social media through the ages. So I'm going to move on from Instagram now, because your kind of workshops evolved into the Neil Redfern YouTube extravaganza. That's what I'm going to call it.
I quite like that. I might nick that.
I think you should just name your channel that.
Yeah, sounds good.
How does a introverted person decide to want to put video content out on the biggest video sharing social media site in the world?
It's a really good question, and one that I would have 2 years ago, if you had said to me, would you make videos where you're actually talking into the camera and then putting that public? Like, forget that. I'm way too shy and introverted for that. But it all started, I think, the beginning of 2018. It's been 2.5 years I've been doing it now. And I'm in a group called the MagMod community. Obviously, a lot of what I do uses MagMod equipment. So I've been quite sort of like active in their Facebook group. And somebody asked a question. I would always post pictures in there. And then I started posting little behind the scenes in there as well, which tended to do quite well. So you see the before and the after. And that's what I always enjoyed about Flash, like trying to think, like, this is a very, crappy, sort of unattractive, in the conventional sense, scene. But you can create this image from it. And I started showing those like little before and afters. And somebody just asked me about a particular photograph. How did you do this? So it's like, and I'd write out the explanation, but it was taking forever. So I thought, what would be easier if I could just narrate, basically, like my answer as to how I did a particular shot, and just put that. And I thought, right, well, I'll do that. Made it into a video. I literally, this what I'm going to say now all sounds fake, and I absolutely promise you 100% it is the truth. I was like, right, okay, where do I post this? I'll post it on YouTube, and I'll just post a link in the group. I didn't even at that point know that you could even subscribe to people on YouTube. I swear it sounds ridiculous, but YouTube to me back then was literally just, you'd look at like videos of cats, or if you've got like a leaky tap, you just Google how to fix it, YouTube how to fix it. That was all I ever used it for. Now I watch YouTube more than TV. I don't even watch TV, but I consume YouTube so much now. But at that point, I didn't know a thing about it. It was just a way of me sharing a video, and that was it. And then a couple of days later, I was getting these notifications like so-and-so subscribe. It's like, oh, that's different. So again, the only place that video was ever played was the MagMod community. I then did another one. In fact, I think it was when I was away at the time. I was shooting a wedding in Hong Kong, and that's where I think I made my first video, if I remember right. And then I did another one, maybe in the hotel room, because I want, at this point, the important thing to say is I wasn't videoing myself. It was just narration with basically the before and after photographs. There is no way that I thought I'm ever going to show my face on camera. That would have scared the living daylights out of me. So the first 30 videos that I made, because then I did start to understand a little bit more that people were enjoying this, and I started liking the process. But still, the first 30 videos that are on my channel now do not show my face at all. And it would just be me. I'd write out a script, and I'd literally just lean into, again, you can't see this, I know, on the podcast, but I'd lean into my laptop and just say, for this photograph, I used 2 speed lights, and it was really, really boring. Like, and there was nothing in it at all. It was just literally me reading a script, and that's how it started. And then as you slowly get more confident, I then start, and I started watching YouTube as well. And I don't mean photography YouTube channels. I mean just YouTubers. You sort of start thinking, oh, I like what they're doing, and they're talking a little bit more upbeat. So you then start integrating that a little bit more. And then I started going outside and talking to the camera, but I will still only ever do it when I'm on my own. Even now, I can talk into a camera and I can sort of commentate now when I'm shooting, but I still feel a bit weirded out if there's people around. The videos that I do, which are the most popular, which is like how I shot this, and I'm talking through every stage of how I created a particular photograph. There's usually just a model there, and maybe the odd other person, literally one or two people. I've done a couple of videos at workshops where I've got like 5 or 6 people watching me, and that's quite strange. But even now, that's weird. But the thing about, to answer your question, you answered a long question, I've given you an even longer answer, which is like, what helps being an introvert is that there's no one there when I'm making the video. And that is the difference. If I was like, making me in front of a live studio audience, I'd freeze and I'd hate it. But because it's just me and at most say one other person, then I can do that, because you don't realize that other people might watch this. You're just thinking, it's only me in a room just talking, and the other person, who's often the model, is bored anyway. They're not bothered. They're not listening. He could say anything. So you can get away with it basically, and that's the reason. It's all down to the fact that the videos themselves are recorded virtually like in isolation, and that's how you can do it being an introvert.
How many subscribers have you got now?
It's getting on for 25,000 now, which is crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
So you're making a fortune from YouTube, obviously, per year now.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm still driving around in a Vauxhall. The actual the way that YouTube works is if you reach 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours watch time, which it's not easy to do that, but it's certainly achievable if you're consistent. People, when you get into YouTube in a big way, you realize that you have to please the algorithm, and you do that often not by video quality, unfortunately, because I put out what I would say is some of my better stuff recently, and that's only because experience. The more videos you do, like with anything in life, the more practice you have, the better your content becomes, the better you become at every part of the video making process. And I'd like to think that what I'm doing, say, the past 2 or 3 months is potentially at the best stuff that I've done, but my views were by far higher, say, this time last year. And that's frustrating. And a lot of that is just due to you basically somehow, you might not even be aware how, you've sort of pleased the algorithm. And it's a dark art as to how you do that. And no one really knows the answer, but you become a slave to it. And that becomes good and bad. Like, I'm producing a video a week at the moment, which is tough to do, but I'm doing that to please the algorithm, because if I have a gap of a month, the next video that I put out, almost regardless of how good it is, will probably flop, or it won't do as well because I'm being punished because I've not been posting consistently. So you become a slave to it. So that's how that part of it works. So, but you get paid through, when we're looking at it from purely YouTube point of view, through the ads. I'm saying that's where you have to have 4,000 hours watch time and 1,000 subscribers. But the AdSense is very small, and it all depends on what sector you're in as well.
This time next year, Rodders.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, that would be good. But for the thing with YouTube, I just love the process of it now.
Yeah.
There's something about it which I really enjoy, and I've tried to figure out what that is on a deeper level. And I think it's why I like getting into why I enjoy photography as well. And it's due to the fact that I can create something that I am proud of, put that out there into the world, and then step away from it. And that does the talking for me. And that's why I enjoy photography, because you can create something, you can spend time trying to get something right, and then you don't have to sell it, if that makes sense. You have to try and put it out there yourself and say, this is why I think this is good, or this is why I think I'm good at this. It's like you put that out there, you step back from it, close the door on it, and then just see how it goes. And that is the reason I like the YouTube videos as well, that I can craft something, then put it out there, but then that does, it sort of like lives and dies on its own. Then I'm not involved in that anymore. The video has to stand on its own 2 feet, and that's why I enjoy it.
I think there's an incredible amount of wisdom in everything you just said. So obviously one thing that starts from it is that you didn't try and become a YouTuber. It's almost like
No.
you put a video out and were surprised that, and then you put another one, and then you put another one because there was kind of an apparent demand for it, rather than going, right, this week I'm going to try and become a YouTuber. Because I don't think it would have worked the other way around. And the other thing that's amazing, I mean, Gary Vayner. I don't know if you know Gary Vaynerchuk much.
Oh, Gary V. Sorry, it's a surname it's from. Yes.
Where he transformed his family's wine business by starting a YouTube channel for it, basically. And he was saying that he basically, even now, he makes all his videos as if one person's going to see him. Like, he doesn't make videos now any differently because millions of people see him. He still makes them as if it was that very first video when he didn't know if anyone was going to watch it. And he was like, the biggest thing I can tell anybody who's trying to make content is, don't try and make content for the viewers. Make content because that's what you feel like is good content. And
Yeah,
you want to put out there.
100%.
And the other massive thing, and I harp on about this all the time, is anything you do, you've got to do it for the love of the process. You can't do it because you want the attention out of the back end of it, or for whatever product it creates. So, like you're saying, with photography, with YouTubing, even with teaching, with your workshops and all the rest of it, you do all of it because you love the process of it.
100%. That is so true, and that's why I think the people who are on YouTube, no one sort of falls into a huge success on YouTube because it doesn't really happen. It takes a lot of work. Like you say, exactly the same with photography as well. And with photography, with wedding photography especially, you know, we're going out, we're shooting for one day. Maybe it might take, I know that you're a demon when it comes to your workflow, but it takes me, say, 3 or 4 days maybe to finish and edit that wedding. And that is hard because you're just sat there on a laptop. I'm easily distracted. But, you know, it's quite a hard graft to do that. And if you were doing that, however many weddings you shoot, you know, 25, 30 times a year, and you didn't love it, you would get burnt out and become bored of that within weeks, I reckon. So you have to love it. And it's that love which sees you through. And it's exactly the same for YouTube, that YouTube is a grind. Like, it's like each week I put out a video knowing at the moment they're not doing anywhere near as well as they were a year ago. But I've almost come to think I don't care about that because I'm enjoying what I'm producing and I'm getting nice comments back from it. And that's enough. But I'd almost say, which again, I know it's a cliche, it's that bit of a, excuse my friends, that bit of a wanky thing to say, but I would still make the videos if I was getting a tenth of the people watching because I love the process of it. It's also something like, it's about capturing things. Again, this gets all very deep and psychological. I know that you're one of the best photographers I know for taking pictures. I know you deny this, of your own family, and you're creating moments. And there must be something in you which is, I need to record this. It's like there's a need in photographers to create these sort of visual memory boxes that we and then it's like we capture that moment in time. It's like, and then we back that up and it's safe. It's locked away. And there's something in me that has always felt the need to do that. Like, I'll photograph all sorts of rubbish on my phone because I need to capture it. Not because it's a good picture. It's I need to keep that thing in some sort of system, and I can look back on that in years to come. So it's not even to do with the photograph, it's to do with the memory. And YouTube is similar. That if I went out last week, did an engagement shoot at Durdle Door. It was really cool. I can't imagine doing that now without capturing it in some form in a video now. And that's not because the couple want it. It's not because I think it's going to do really well for views or anything like that. It's because I'm thinking I'm going to enjoy looking back on this in 10 years. And that, again, is something that's deeper inside me that is not about the views. It's about this need to capture things and then look back on them. And that's what really sort of like gets me. So that, to answer your question, it's like there's a love of it. There's a need to do that sees me through. It's not because I want to become Instagram or YouTube famous. It's not that at all. It's fulfilling a need that I think I have on some sort of deeper level.
Listen. Massive thanks to Neil for this really deep insight into the creative process and the need to create for the sake of creating and preserving memories rather than the desire for attention that I think we're all guilty of needing at times. You can find Neil's work and information about his regular flash workshops at neilredfern.com, as well as on Instagram, Facebook and YouTube. And make sure you come and see him at the 9 Dots Gathering. You can listen to previous episodes of the Dotcast anywhere you normally listen to podcasts, and to find out more about 9 Dots or to become a member and support our cause for a more community-led industry, head over to 9-dots.co. See you next time.